How's everybody doing? This is Anthony Brown Logan, and we got to keep talking about this whole situation with the NFL, the kneeling down, the National Anthem protests. There's been a lot of that happening. Today is Monday, September 25th, 2017, but over the weekend with the NFL games, you were seeing all kind of protests. The Steelers didn't come out, but you had the one guy, Villanueva. He came out there, but he apologized later. It was a lot of different stuff going on this weekend, and a lot of it really was about trying to protest Trump with the whole kneeling during the national anthem. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but right now in this video, I want to talk about a coach by the name of Gregg Popovich. Now, Gregg Popovich is an NBA coach. He coaches the San Antonio Spurs. Now, the reason why the NBA, the basketball professional league, the reason why they're in on it is because Trump said a thing about Steph Curry on Twitter talking about he's no longer invited to the White House because he was waffling back and forth, this, that, and the third. And when he did that, I think LeBron James chimed in on Twitter, and then he made a few videos about it. I'll link to those in the description box below. You also had a former NBA player, Baron Davis, give his 2 cents, and you had Kobe Bryant give his 2 cents, and it kind of spiraled like that. So there's been a lot of different back and forth from NBA players to the current president. Now, I guess it was some kind of press day at the NBA doing right now, which is the preseason. And Gregg Popovich, who was normally very quiet and does not talk a whole lot, he's known for that, you know, pop being pop, all this, that, and the third. Now, all of a sudden wants to wax poetic about how bad Donald Trump is and the state of the country, this, that, and the third. I've not seen the entire thing because what I'm going to do right now is go ahead and roll it. I'm going to watch it live with you, and I'll give my reaction when necessary and appropriate. After we get done with that, I'll tell you about Gregg Popovich and my knowledge about the game. I love basketball more than football. Love basketball. Used to play myself. Was never really good, but I digress. We're going to talk about Gregg Popovich, the game of basketball, and the protest and what it's going to do and anything else. The end game of the actual protest. What's the end game going to be? We'll talk about all that after we get done with the video. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
And Mr. Petty, who said people who act the way we saw on Sunday, they should leave the country.
Yeah.
That's where I live. I had no idea that I lived in a country where people would actually say that sort of thing. I'm not totally naive, but I think these people have been enabled by an example that we've all been given. And you've seen it in Charlottesville and on and on and on.
So basically right here, he's talking about Charlottesville. He's trying to blame that on Donald Trump. Like there was no violent protest before Donald Trump became elected. Before he even announced he was going to run, there was no violent protest. The whole thing in Ferguson, Missouri, hands up, don't shoot. Baltimore, Maryland, all these places never happened before Trump came into the picture. So let's blame everything on Donald Trump and ignore the whole context of the country before he became in the public eye as far as being the president or potentially becoming the president. But let's keep going.
That's not a surprise. Get over it. You know, what do we do to get it done? To go to the grassroots and not allow this to happen again. You know, our country's an embarrassment in the world.
Shame on you. How you going to call the country an embarrassment? Like, what do you mean our country is an embarrassment? What you mean Donald Trump is an embarrassment or just the regular everyday people? Now, you want to talk about labeling people with a broad brush. You're labeling me and yourself as an embarrassment, but I'll let you keep going.
This is an individual who actually thought that when people held arms during the games that they were doing it to honor the flag.
Are you crying? What's going on?
That's delusional. Absolutely delusional, but it's what we have to live with. So you got a choice. We can continue to bounce our heads off the wall with his conduct, or we can decide that the institutions of our country are more important, that people are more important, that the decent America that we all thought we had and want is more important, and get down to business at the grassroots level and do what we have to do.
And what's that? When you say get down to business at the grassroots level and do what you got to do, what does that consist of? What are you really going to do to fix anything going on wrong in the black community if you're referring to that? What are you really going to do? What are your athletes going to do?
I guess that's enough for now.
Great job of not taking that on.
Thank you.
Whether your players kneel or stand for the national anthem, they'll be judged one way or another.
Right.
Are you empathetic?
If they stand on their heads, somebody will say something. Somebody will say it was great. If they kneel, it'll be 50-50. If they stand, it's 50. You know, it's that can't be your criteria. What somebody's going to think. It's got to be what you feel and what you think will do some good. You know, overall.
How about this? Just do the right thing. Do the right thing. Don't base it upon your feelings. Just do what's right. I mean, everybody knows that the right thing to do in this situation would be to stand for the national anthem. When you live in America, you're an American, stand for the national anthem. You know, I mean, police brutality, what does that got to do with the country? You know, it's like you're talking about people that may or may not be guilty of a crime. Just because a crime is committed does not mean that the country is at fault.
So who's to judge that?
Considering the platform you have, do you consider a responsibility for you to speak out on these types of things? And a similar platform to what NFL players have. Is that something that you feel you owe?
Well, I don't think about some platform that I have. I'm an individual. I live in this country. I have a right to say and think what I want. It's got nothing to do with, you know, my position. If it helps somebody else think one way or the other about something, great. But the discussion has to take place. You know, it's you know, obviously, you know, race is the elephant in the room, and we all understand that. But unless it is talked about constantly, it's not going to get better. People get bored. Oh, was it that again? They pull in a race card again. Why do we have to talk about that? Well, because it's uncomfortable. And there has to be an uncomfortable element in the discourse for anything to change. You know, whether it's the LGBT movement you know, women's suffrage.
See, here we go. This is just liberal talking points. You know, I'm so disappointed in Gregg Popovich. So disappointed. I had a lot of respect for him. I'll talk about that after we get done, but I'm really disappointed. Now you're trying to link the black situation with LGBT and women. That's liberal stuff. You know, that's not a conservative talking. You're trying to link being black with like almost being disabled. I'm not a big fan of that.
Race, it doesn't matter. People have to be made to feel uncomfortable, and especially white people, because we're comfortable.
Oh, boy.
We still have no clue of what being born white means. And if you read some of the, you know, recent literature, you'll realize there really is no such thing as whiteness.
Okay, so if there's no such thing as whiteness, then how are you going to say that being born white gives you an advantage? Like, I don't understand. If there's no whiteness, then what are you talking about?
But we've kind of made it up. That's not my original thought, but it's true. And it's hard to sit down and decide that, yes, it's like you're at the 50, you know, the 50-meter mark in a 100-meter dash.
Oh, boy.
And you got that kind of a lead. Yes, because you were born white.
I'm going to ask you this question. Anybody listening to the sound of my voice, is what he's saying like white supremacist talking points? Wouldn't that be a white supremacist? If you're a white person and you say, I'm white, so then therefore I'm automatically ahead of you in anything I do. Automatically. Just by being white. It don't matter where you come from, what you are. By being white, I automatically have a leg up on you. Isn't that being a white supremacist? You think that you are superior to everybody else? Now, he could say it with like regret. He could say it begrudgingly, but he still thinks it and he still believes it. So isn't that being a white supremacist? I mean, if it's not, I don't understand how that's not. I mean, that's exactly what he's saying. He's saying it like he regrets it, but that's what he believes.
You have advantages that are systemically, culturally, psychologically there. And they have been built up and cemented for hundreds of years.
Disappointed.
But many people can't look at it. It's too difficult. It can't be something that is on their plate on a daily basis. People want to hold their position. People want the status quo. People don't want to give that up. And until it's given up, it's not going to be fixed. Again, I'm just one dude walking around, and that's how I feel.
As a member of the NBA family, were you insulted by the fact that the Warriors' invitation was rescinded?
Well, I thought it was comical that it was rescinded. because they weren't going anyway. So it's like a sixth grader is going to have a party in his backyard, and he finds out somebody might not come, so he disinvites them. But again, I think the behavior, although it's disgusting, it's also comical. Well, if we've done anything to widen people's cultural or intellectual horizons, I guess that's great. But we don't have the answers. I just think being aware is important.
Aware of what? Aware of what? Like, I guess you're talking about the whole thing with the protests and kneeling and stuff like that. But I mean, I think everybody pretty much gets the point by now. So I mean, how long are the protests going to continue? When are you going to stop? First is, okay, we want everybody to be aware. Okay, so how long does that take? I think everybody pretty much gets the point. So what's next? What's the next course of action? I think you're just doing this because you have an 85% black league and you want to keep your job. You had for the past 22 years. You want to keep playing or not playing. You want to keep coaching these players and you want to keep making your money that you're making, millions per year at that. So you pretty much just taking the SJW stance. But I'll talk about that a little bit later.
Basketball is our job, but we have lives. We have children and grandchildren and friendships and ups and downs in all of our lives. And I think that it's important for our players to understand that the world they live in is complicated, especially today, for all the reasons that we know. So whatever we can do to make players aware of their emotions, their feelings, and consequences thereof, I think it's part of our responsibility.
So there you have it from Gregg Popovich, the coach of the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA, National Basketball Association. Oh, man, I have so much to say. First of all, I'm so disappointed in Gregg Popovich. I really respected him. I respected the Spurs organization. The players that come from the organization, always class act guys, never hear about them getting in any kind of trouble. They always perform well on the court. Someone said that the Spurs are boring. It's like watching paint dry, but they're always very methodical in what they do. They're never really flashy. They have just good quality guys on their team. It's like going to Chick-fil-A and you know that the service is going to be great. It's going to be great people. The food may be okay, maybe kind of bland sometimes, but the people that work there are great. That's how the Spurs are. And in reality, they're a very skilled basketball team, very good basketball team, always ranked high in the NBA. They bring players on and they develop them very well. They've had cornerstone players. You're talking about Tim Duncan, one of the best, if not the best, power forwards of all time. I mean, Tim Duncan was playing so vanilla, but even late into his career, when he was almost in his 20th year in the NBA, even late into his career, he was still doing very well. Right, he was still able to perform at a pretty high level, higher than the average power forward, even the young guys that would come in there, because he was Mr. Fundamental. He would come on the court, hit you with a little half move in the paint, lay up over you, and you wouldn't even really be able to stop it. It happened so slowly, but so methodically at the same time. It was just a wonder to see him. Now, he was a great athlete, by the way, Tim Duncan. He was a big-time swimmer, 7 foot tall, could really do a lot with his body, but it was not flashy. It was not fancy, but it was able to get the job done. And a lot of the guys on the team throughout the years do the same thing. Your Tony Parkers of the world, Manu Ginobili, even way back like Malik Rose. You had guys that would come in like DeJuan Blair. You have guys that would come in and play their role perfectly. Even right now with guys like Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is developing into one of the top, maybe even the best player in the league, maybe even beyond LeBron James, right? They are a great team to watch, in my opinion, just from the technical standpoint. And they are also a bunch of great guys on the team. So when Gregg Popovich does this, it really just kind of throws me off and it rubs me the wrong way. Because when you see Popovich normally, everybody jokes about it. When you watch Inside the NBA and stuff like that, you'll see him give a sideline interview after halftime or after a play during a little bit of downtime or whatever. The person will ask him a couple questions. Popovich will give one-word answers. He's really stoic all the time. Never really tells you anything. They say it's Pop being Pop.
Gregg Popovich, 4 for 22 shooting so far on offense for you guys. What's the problem?
Well, it didn't go in the hole.
And I appreciated that about him because he was all about business, all about trying to get stuff done on the court. But now you want to come out here and wax poetic about Donald Trump and about how he's such a bad guy and his comments and calling him a sixth grader, all this, that, and the third. I think it's just, it's anti-pop. But, the reason why I think he's doing that is because you have a league that is 85% black. There's only about a handful of American white guys in the league. Any white guys in the league are pretty much Europeans. Guys like Kristaps Porzingis and stuff like that. There's rarely any American white guys like JJ Redick or Gordon Hayward. So it's a mostly black league, and the guys that are white, they're not American. So he wants to appeal to the predominant force within the NBA, in my humble opinion. I cannot think of any other reason why he would come out here and speak like this, because like I said, normally he does not speak like this. And it makes me lose respect for him, because I saw him one way, but now I see him a different way, and I don't like what I see. Now, some people will think that he's doing a great thing, good for Pop, standing up for what I think it's just really kind of dumb, since this is not what he normally does anyway. I follow the Spurs and I follow Popovich for many years. I'm a big time basketball fan. I've been watching the Spurs since David Robinson, the Twin Towers. I was watching them since then, even before that. So I'm just really kind of let down by what he said here. And as far as the NBA is concerned, I love the NBA. I love watching games. But really, the truth is, as of late, there's been a lot less parity in the league. You're talking about the Cavaliers and the Golden State Warriors. These are the best teams in the league. Everybody knows that they're going to be the ones in the finals. It's a toss-up between the two of them. Whoever's able to get the better free agent selections, they're going to be the one that win their championship. It's to the point now where it's anticlimactic, and it also makes regular season basketball kind of suffer, because the other teams are left to compete with lesser talent, in my humble opinion, or it's like less vim and vigor that they play with, because everybody knows that they're not going to be able to get that far in the playoffs. Some of the playoffs has been pretty good this past year. I think the Celtics versus Wizards, when you had Isaiah Thomas, when his sister was killed or she died. I'm not quite sure what happened. I think it was a car accident or something like that. If I'm wrong about how she passed away, let me know in the box. But when he came back from her death and he played very well, it was her birthday too. That was a very good game. That was a touching moment. But moments like that, games like that, have become few and far in between in the NBA since the whole super team thing happened. Now, I know some of you're NBA purists, you'll say, well, the super team phenomenon is not anything new. You had the Boston Celtics back in the day, the Showtime Lakers, the Chicago Bulls. You had those teams, but I think now it's become more of a trendy thing. Everybody wants to get the big team, and nobody really wants to play for a mid-level team. Like, I became a fan of the game really like during the late 90s and the early 2000s when I was like a teenager. My team was the Milwaukee Bucks, when you had Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, Glenn Robinson, way back in those days. Kevin Ali, when I was playing NBA 2K on a OG, on a Dreamcast, right? Back in those days, I became a big fan of the league. The Toronto Raptors, I think they had Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Charles Oakley, guys like that. I was a fan of those teams. These teams had a lot of character. They did not have a lot of journeymen. They had some journeymen, but guys would stay on the team for a little while at least, and they would try to build something. Even as recently as the Washington Wizards, when you had Gilbert Arenas before you put the pistol in the locker room. But I digress. Those days when you had more parity in the league, I appreciated it more. But now you're seeing less of that. You're seeing the one and done rule come in. Guys are going to college for 1 year, barely getting developed, and they come into the league underperforming. So basically, making a long story short, I would not have a really big issue boycotting the NBA if they're going to do all the SJW stuff that the NFL is doing. No problem at all, because the truth is that they have been declining for a while due to the lack of parity. The regular season games have not been as entertaining as they were before. ESPN I don't have anymore because of all the SJW stuff on it, so I miss a lot of games anyway. I pretty much only watch it when it comes on ABC on Sundays, like later in the season, close to the playoffs. When it comes on TNT, I barely watch it. I prefer to watch Inside the NBA with Ernie, Kenny the Jet Smith, Shaq, and Charles Barkley after it's aired on YouTube, rather than paying for TNT and watching the NBA game live. That's just pretty much where I'm at with it. So I think at the end of the day, as I close, Gregg Popovich and other guys in the NBA, players and coaches alike, if you want to go down this SJW rabbit hole and turn people off like myself who've been fans for 15, 20, 30, their whole life, you're going to end up biting yourself in the butt, because this will not end well. The people that really want to support the SJW narrative do not watch sports. They don't know anything about the positions in the league. If you ask them what's the point guard, they'll probably say, oh, Shaq. They don't know anything about the game, sports. They don't watch games. They don't buy tickets. They've never been to a game. I've been to a few NBA games in my life. I've been to see the Charlotte Bobcats. I've been to see the LA Lakers. I've been to see the Minnesota Timberwolves. I saw Kevin Garnett, Kobe. I've seen these guys in person, in real life. So I like the game. I'm their actual target market. And when you make guys like me kind of like look at you differently, it's not going to be a good look for you at the end of the day when it's all said and done. So what do you think? Do you think that Gregg Popovich made a lot of sense in what he said during these comments that I showed you? Do you think he didn't make a lot of sense? Do you think that Gregg Popovich has shown himself to be a different guy than what you imagine him to be? Now, I have seen some posts on Twitter. They're talking about he's been doing this for a while. I hadn't really seen it because, like I said, all I know was Pop being Pop, barely answering questions in interviews and stuff like that. I think when Craig Sager died, rest in peace, he said something about that, which, of course, you would expect him to. But when you're talking about SJW stuff, I figured he would pretty much exclude himself from that situation. But maybe I'm wrong. And I see that I'm wrong based upon what he said so far. But whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.